Hogan's Heroes was a comedy classic, but behind the laughs were real-life tragedies that no script could soften. The cast made us smile on screen, but off-screen, some faced heartbreaking ends, a shocking unsolved death, haunted memories of war, and careers lost to scandal and silence. From Bob Crane's mysterious downfall to Robert Clary's unimaginable past, these are the untold stories behind the stars of Hogan's Heroes. Which of their stories stuck with you the most? Hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Bob Crane played Colonel Robert Hogan, the sharp, quick-witted leader who always stayed one step ahead of the Nazis in Hogan's Heroes. When the show premiered in 1965, Bob was 37, and overnight he became a household name across America. The role earned him 2 Emmy nominations and turned him into a television icon. But fame didn't last forever. When Hogan's Heroes ended in 1971, Bob's career quickly lost steam. Small roles in Disney's Superdad, 1973, Gus, 1976, and the short-lived Bob Crane Show, 1975, failed to bring him back into the spotlight. His personal life was just as chaotic. After 21 years of marriage, he divorced his first wife, Anne, mother of his 3 kids, and married his co-star Seagrid Valdis, who played Hilda. Sadly, that marriage didn't last either, and the two separated not long before Bob's tragic end. Behind the scenes, Bob lived with a secret that eventually unraveled his world. He had developed an obsession with recording intimate moments, something he shared with a friend named John Carpenter. What started as a thrill slowly turned into something darker, isolating Bob from Hollywood and damaging his reputation. Then came the most shocking part of all. On June 29, 1978, while on tour with the stage play Beginner's Luck in Scottsdale, Arizona, Bob was found dead in his apartment. He was just 49. To this day, no one knows for sure what happened. Carpenter was put on trial but ultimately acquitted. The mystery and Bob's complicated past only deepened public fascination. At the time of his death, Bob Crane's net worth was estimated at around $2 million, all of which went to Seagrid Valdis. That raised eyebrows and more questions than answers. Today, Bob Crane rests beside her at Westwood Village Memorial Park under a quiet inscription, "Hogan and Hilda, forever together." A bittersweet farewell for a man who made the world laugh, even as his own life quietly fell apart. Werner Clmper played Colonel Wilhelm Klink, the clueless, self-important commandant of Stalag 13 in Hogan's Heroes. When he stepped into the role in 1965 at age 45, Werner turned Klink into comic gold. His deadpan delivery and bumbling arrogance made the character a fan favorite. His performance earned him back-to-back Emmy Awards in 1968 and 1969. But off-screen, Werner's life couldn't have been more different. Born on March 22, 1920 in Cologne, Germany, he was the son of world-renowned conductor Otto Clmper. In 1933, the family fled Nazi Germany, escaping persecution but carrying the emotional weight of exile. Though they found safety in America, Werner grew up under the towering shadow of his father's fame, forever trying to carve his own path as an artist. That quiet pressure followed him through life. Despite building a respected career, Werner battled with loneliness and heartbreak. He went through 3 marriages, each one ending in pain. His second marriage to actress Louise Troy came at the height of Hogan's Heroes in 1969, but they divorced by 1975. From his earlier marriage to Susan Dempsey, he had 2 children, Mark and Erica. While Klink made audiences laugh with his clueless charm, Werner privately wrestled with unhealed wounds. Even as he earned acclaim in films like Judgment at Nuremberg, 1961, and starred on Broadway in Cabaret, 1987, he carried the quiet burden of a man who had seen too much and shared too little. In his final years, he found peace with his longtime partner, actress Kim Hamilton, who stayed by his side until the end. On December 6, 2000, Werner Clmper died from lung cancer at age 80. A longtime smoker, his illness reflected the silent toll of a generation shaped by war and stage lights. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $5 million, earned not just through fame, but a lifetime of steady, dedicated work. He may have played the fool on screen, but Werner's real story is one of survival, persistence, and quiet dignity. John Banner played Sergeant Hans Schultz, the bumbling, soft-hearted prison guard who became iconic for the catchphrase, "I see nothing, I hear nothing, I know nothing." When Hogan's Heroes debuted in 1965, Banner was 55, and his hilarious performance made him a household name across America. But off-screen, his life was anything but funny. Born on January 28, 1910 in Stanislaw, Austria-Hungary, now Ukraine, John grew up in a Jewish family. As Nazi power spread through Europe, he fled Austria in 1938, leaving behind loved ones he would never see again. In the U.S., he quickly learned English and joined the U.S. Air Force, serving through World War II with quiet determination. Though he built a career in Hollywood, the trauma of the Holocaust never left him. Many of his relatives were murdered in concentration camps, a grief that ran deep and never faded. Ironically, his survival in the film industry often meant playing the very kind of Nazi soldiers that once threatened his family's existence. Each role came with a bitter irony, bringing work but also painful memories he couldn't ignore. Despite his fame as Schultz, John's personal life was marked by solitude. He married twice but had no children. Most of his later years were spent touring and acting, using work as a way to outrun his past. Films like The Wicked Dreams of Paula Schultz, 1968, and The Chicago Teddy Bears brought brief attention but little lasting joy. On January 28, 1973, his 63rd birthday, John Banner died, suddenly in Vienna from a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. At the time, he had been resting with friends seeking peace after decades of relentless work and quiet pain. His net worth was estimated at around $1 million, a modest figure for a man who gave so many the gift of laughter while quietly carrying the weight of history. He made us laugh, but carried his sorrow in silence. Robert Clary played Corporal Louis Lebeau, the clever, quick-witted French cook in Hogan's Heroes. When the show launched in 1965, he was 39, and his energy, humor, and charm made Lebeau one of the most lovable characters on TV. But behind that cheerful performance was a man who had survived the unthinkable. Clary was born on March 1, 1926, in Paris, into a Jewish family with 14 siblings. At just 16, he was deported to a Nazi concentration camp. He bore the tattoo A57 Wamftor on his arm, a permanent reminder of the suffering he endured. 10 of his siblings were killed. In Buchenwald, he sang for SS guards, clinging to each note not for applause but for survival. After the war, Clary moved to the U.S., determined to rebuild. Holding back tears, he returned to the stage, first in cabarets and Broadway, then in films and television. Hogan's Heroes made him famous, but also drew confusion and backlash. Many viewers were shocked that a Holocaust survivor would appear in a comedy set during World War II. Stalag 13 wasn't a concentration camp, Clary explained time and time again. We weren't mocking the Holocaust, we were telling a story about prisoners of war. Still, the criticism followed him. Some critics never forgave the choice, but Clary stood firm, believing laughter was a form of resilience, not disrespect. He continued acting in films like The Hindenburg, 1975, but the weight of his losses never left him. His only marriage to Natalie Cantor, daughter of legendary comedian Eddie Cantor, lasted over 30 years until her passing in 1997. They had no children. In his later years, Clary shifted focus. Instead of chasing roles, he dedicated himself to Holocaust education, traveling across schools, churches, and community centers. One of the most powerful moments came when he stood in front of a classroom of teenagers, rolled up his sleeve, and showed them the tattoo. The room fell silent. Some cried. For Clary, that silence was everything. It meant they were listening. On November 16, 2022, Robert Clary passed away peacefully at his home in Los Angeles. He was 96. At the time, his net worth was estimated around $3 million, earned through decades of work not just in entertainment but in spreading a message of remembrance. He turned trauma into purpose and used his voice not just to survive, but to make sure the world never forgets. Richard Dawson played Corporal Peter Newkirk, the smooth-talking British POW with street smarts and charm in Hogan's Heroes. When he joined the cast in 1965 at age 33, he quickly won over American audiences with his wit, accent, and cheeky grin. But behind the charisma was a man shaped by war, loneliness, and quiet longing. Born on November 20, 1932 in Gosport, England, Dawson's childhood was marked by chaos. He and his brother were evacuated to escape German bombings, separating them from their parents. At just 14, Dawson ran away to join the British Merchant Navy, sailing across the globe, boxing for cash, and learning how to survive. Those years built his toughness, but also left him feeling emotionally adrift. After Hogan's Heroes, Dawson's second wave of fame came through game shows. He was a breakout star on Match Game and later the unforgettable host of Family Feud. His charm and spontaneity made him a household name, but his habit of kissing female contestants on air stirred controversy. While Dawson saw it as a harmless gesture of good luck, some viewers were uncomfortable. The media debated it, and even producers questioned whether it should continue, but Dawson stuck to what he believed made the show feel personal and warm. In private, his life wasn't always joyful. His first marriage to actress Diana Dors collapsed under the pressure of fame and media attention. For years, Dawson floated, surrounded by people but feeling alone. That changed in 1991 when he married Gretchen Johnson, a former Family Feud contestant. They had a daughter, and for the first time, Dawson found the kind of grounded happiness he had longed for. In his later years, he stayed mostly out of the spotlight, devoting time to his family and reflecting on a life filled with highs and lows. On June 2, 2012, Richard Dawson passed away in Los Angeles from esophageal cancer. He was 79. Just days before, he'd been joking with nurses and telling stories to his daughter at his bedside. His net worth was estimated at around $2 million. He was the man who made America laugh, but in the end, it was the quiet moments with family that mattered most. Ivan Dixon played Sergeant James Kinchlow, the calm, brilliant communications expert in Hogan's Heroes. When the show debuted in 1965, Dixon was 34 and quickly became more than just a supporting character. He stood as a rare symbol of black excellence and quiet dignity on American television during one of the country's most turbulent decades. Born on April 6, 1931 in Harlem, New York, Dixon was the son of working-class immigrants. He grew up surrounded by both community strength and systemic inequality. Those early experiences shaped not only his view of the world, but also his purpose in the arts. Even as his acting career took off, racism remained a constant barrier, sometimes silent, sometimes obvious. He was often offered limited, stereotyped roles, and behind the scenes, doors quietly closed. After 5 seasons on Hogan's Heroes, Dixon made a bold decision. He walked away from a steady paycheck and national fame to pursue directing. He wanted to tell stories that mattered, stories about race, justice, and truth. His 1973 film, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, was groundbreaking but controversial. With its bold portrayal of black empowerment and government infiltration, the film was deemed too radical for the time. It was quietly pulled from theaters amid political pressure and largely disappeared from the mainstream. Dixon never spoke publicly in anger, but the resistance he faced left a mark. Still, he never gave up on using art as a force for change. While his career was often an uphill climb, Dixon found stability in his personal life. He met his wife, Burley Ray, in college, and they shared decades of partnership. Together, they raised 4 children. But even there, life dealt cruel blows. 2 of their sons passed away before him, leaving Dixon with a quiet sorrow he rarely showed. In his final years, Dixon slowed down and spent more time near family. He was often seen tending his garden, still reflecting deeply on the world around him, even as his health declined. On March 16, 2008, Ivan Dixon passed away in Charlotte, North Carolina after a long battle with kidney failure. He was 76. His net worth was estimated at about $1 million, modest perhaps, but built on decades of principled work, both on screen and behind the camera. He never chased the spotlight. Instead, he lit one for others to follow. Larry Havis played Sergeant Andrew Carter, the enthusiastic, slightly bumbling explosives expert in Hogan's Heroes. When he joined the cast in 1965 at just 29 years old, he brought a boyish charm that made Carter one of the show's most lovable characters, full of innocence, bravery, and big-hearted humor. Off-screen, Havis was just as multi-talented. Born on February 20, 1936 in Wapato, Washington, he first found success as a singer. He signed with Capitol Records, performed in nightclubs, and seemed destined for a music career. But Hollywood had other plans. Shifting from music to acting, Havis struggled to find consistent recognition. Even as Hogan's Heroes made him a familiar face, other projects didn't bring the same success. He later worked as a producer, most notably on Totally Hidden Video, a hidden camera show that stirred controversy and even legal trouble. Those setbacks, quiet but significant, cast a shadow over what could have been a broader entertainment legacy. Despite professional disappointments, Havis kept creating. He devoted time to theater and became a respected teacher at Texas State University. Unlike many of his peers, he kept his personal life away from the tabloids. No scandals, no headlines, just steady, honest work. In his final years, Havis found joy in the classroom. Students remembered him as a generous, passionate mentor, someone who gave real-world wisdom without ever losing his spark for storytelling. He often joked that comedy is just tragedy that took a wrong turn, and his lectures always ended with a laugh. But tragedy came in the form of esophageal cancer, a slow, brutal illness often tied to the stress and lifestyle of show business. Havis fought bravely, but the disease took its toll. On September 9, 2003, Larry Havis passed away in Austin, Texas at the age of 67. His net worth was estimated at around $700,000, a modest figure compared to the depth and variety of his career. He never chased fame. Instead, he brought talent, integrity, and quiet dedication to everything he did, on stage, on screen, and in the classroom. Seagrid Valdis played Hilda, the alluring and mysterious secretary to Colonel Klink in Hogan's Heroes. She joined the show in 1966 at 31 years old and quickly left a mark, not just with her beauty, but with a performance that added quiet wit and intrigue to every scene. Off-screen, her real name was Patricia Annette Olson. Before the fame, she had been married to businessman George Ate and had a daughter. But everything changed when she met Bob Crane on set. The chemistry was instant, and their whirlwind romance became tabloid fodder when Crane divorced his wife and married Valdis in 1970. But the spotlight turned brutal in 1978, when Bob Crane was found murdered under mysterious and violent circumstances. The scandal stunned the nation and shattered Valdis's world. To protect her daughter from the chaos, she vanished from the public eye, walking away from her rising career without a word. In the years that followed, Seagrid Valdis chose peace over fame. She moved to Seattle and focused on what mattered most, being a mother. She contributed quietly to her son's radio show, never seeking attention, only healing. To her daughter, she wasn't a star, she was a safe harbor in a world that had turned cruel. Later, she returned to Westwood, where neighbors described her as gentle and private. She'd wave politely, always warm, but kept her past tucked away. The shadow of Crane's murder never fully lifted, but she carried it with quiet strength. In 2007, after a long battle with lung cancer, Seagrid Valdis passed away in Anaheim, California at age 72. Her net worth was estimated at around $500,000, earned not from fame but from quiet resilience and grace. Though her time on screen was brief, the story she left behind was one of heartbreak, healing, and the quiet power of a mother's love. Leon Oschin played General Burkhalter, the gruff, no-nonsense German officer in Hogan's Heroes who was constantly outsmarted by the prisoners of Stalag 13. He joined the cast in 1965 at age 58, and with his booming voice and sharp timing made Burkhalter one of the most recognizable characters on TV. But off-screen, Leon's real life was no comedy. Born on September 18, 1907 in Vienna, Austria, he grew up in a Jewish family. When the Nazis rose to power, Oschin was beaten by SA and SS officers and forced to flee the country in 1940. His greatest sorrow came when his parents were murdered at the Treblinka death camp, a wound he carried for the rest of his life. After escaping to the U.S., Oschin joined the U.S. Air Force and served honorably during World War II. When peace returned, he turned back to acting. Though often typecast in supporting roles with thick accents, he built a respected career. Beyond Hogan's Heroes, he appeared in films like 1, 2, 3 and The Robe, and shows like Happy Days. Despite his humor on screen, Oschin never fully escaped the emotional scars of exile and loss. But in his later years, he found a quiet form of peace. He returned to Vienna, no longer as a refugee, but as a celebrated actor and survivor. He spent his final years surrounded by the city that once turned its back on him, now welcoming him home with pride. Leon Oschin passed away on June 3, 2005 in his hometown of Vienna at age 97. His net worth at the time was estimated at around $2 million. He now rests at Vienna Central Cemetery, closing a life story defined by resilience, artistry, and the will to endure. Behind every laugh he gave us was a man who had faced the darkest parts of history and chose to keep shining anyway. From Bob Crane's tragic murder to Robert Clary's haunting memories of the Holocaust, the stories behind Hogan's Heroes are filled with both heartbreak and resilience. These actors made us laugh, but their real lives told a different story. Which journey touched you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories.